I flew 13 hours to surprise my family for New Year's. First time home in 4 years. No one picked me up, my seat was gone, and my aunt laughed. Didn't know ghosts got invites. My sister said, stay out of the photos. Even Dad whispered, just don't start anything. I just nodded and proclaimed, you won't see me again. 2 months later, I did something that set off a chain reaction. Last night, my brother called me crying. What did you do? I flew 13 hours to surprise my family for New Year's after 4 years away. The flight from Sydney to Denver was hell, cramped middle seat, crying babies, the works. But I was excited. For years since I'd been home. For years since I'd seen anyone face to face. I texted my mom when I landed, expecting chaos and happy tears. Instead, she responded with confusion. Nobody was coming to get me. I took an Uber, thinking maybe they were just overwhelmed with party prep. The house looked exactly the same, Christmas lights still up, cars packed in the driveway. I could hear laughter and music from inside. My heart was pounding as I knocked on the door. My cousin opened it, saw me, and his face went white. He called for my aunt, who appeared with a drink in her hand, looked me up and down, and laughed. She told everyone that she didn't know ghosts got invites to family parties. Everyone went quiet. My sister appeared next, took one look at me standing there with my suitcase, and told me to stay out of the photos they were taking. Just like that. For years, and that's what I got. Dad came over, put his hand on my shoulder, and whispered that I should just not start anything. Like I was the problem. Like I was some troublemaker who'd shown up to ruin their perfect little gathering. I looked around the room. My seat at the table was gone. Not just occupied, gone. They'd set up for exactly the number of people they expected, and I wasn't one of them. Cousins I grew up with avoided eye contact. My brother pretended to be busy with his phone. They'd moved on without me. For years ago, I'd left after a huge fight with Dad about my career choices, about moving abroad, about abandoning the family. I thought time would heal things. I was wrong. I stood there for maybe 10 minutes, watching them continue their party like I wasn't even there. My aunt kept making little comments about unexpected visitors and setting extra places. My sister kept positioning herself so I'd be blocked out of any group photos. Finally, I looked at all of them and said something I'd never said to my family before. I told them they wouldn't see me again. Then I walked out. I spent New Year's Eve alone in a hotel room, eating room service and watching fireworks on TV. I cried for the first time in years. Not just from sadness, but from anger. Pure, clean anger. Update 1. I flew back to Australia 2 days later and spent the next month planning. See, there's something my family didn't know. For years abroad hadn't just been about finding myself or whatever they thought. I'd been building something. My startup had just been acquired by a major tech company. Not for millions, but for enough that I never had to worry about money again. The acquisition was still under wraps, wouldn't be announced for another month. But I had an idea. My family's business, Dad's construction company that my brother now helped run, had been struggling. I knew this from my mom's worried phone calls over the years, before even those stopped. They'd been bidding on a massive residential development project for 2 years. The kind of contract that would set them up for life. I made some calls. Turns out, the company developing that project was a subsidiary of the company that had just bought my startup. Small world. I suggested they might want to reconsider their contractor selection. I mentioned that the current frontrunner might not be the best fit for a project of this magnitude. I didn't lie about anything. I just shared some concerns about their capacity, their recent performance, some delays on past projects that were matters of public record. The contract went to their biggest competitor instead. Update 2. 1 month after that, I did something else. My aunt's catering business had been supplying food for the local country club for 15 years. Steady income, good relationship. But I'd done some research and found out about some health code violations from years back that had been quietly settled. Nothing major, but enough to raise questions about consistency. I happened to mention this to someone who happened to know someone on the country club's board. Again, I didn't lie, just shared publicly available information with concerned parties. They decided to go with a different caterer for their events going forward. My sister worked in real estate. She'd been trying to close a deal on a commercial property for months. Would have been the biggest commission of her career. I discovered that the buyers were planning to turn it into a payday loan operation. I made sure the sellers knew about this, along with some information about how such businesses affected property values in surrounding areas. The sellers backed out. I wasn't done. My brother had been dating someone for 2 years, talking about marriage. She seemed nice from her social media, but I did some digging. Turns out she'd been posting about their relationship online while also maintaining dating profiles on 3 different apps. Screenshots are amazing things. I created an anonymous account and sent him the evidence. None of this was illegal. None of it was even unethical by most standards. I was just sharing information that people deserve to have. Update 3. 2 months after my disastrous trip home, the dominoes started falling fast. Dad's construction company lost 3 major contracts in a row. My aunt's catering business lost their biggest client and 2 smaller ones. My sister's real estate deal fell through, and her sales started drying up as word got around about her pushy tactics, information I'd shared with some former clients. My brother discovered his girlfriend's cheating and ended up in a spiral that affected his work performance. But I wasn't satisfied yet. I wanted them to understand what it felt like to be truly alone. I reached out to extended family members, people I'd kept in touch with over the years. I told them what had happened at New Year's, how I'd been treated. Most were horrified. They'd assumed I'd been invited and welcomed. They had no idea about the family dynamics, about how I'd been essentially exiled. Family reunions started getting awkward. People began asking questions. Why hadn't anyone mentioned I was doing well abroad? Why hadn't they tried to include me in family events? Why did my aunt think it was funny to call me a ghost? The family started fracturing. Some sided with my parents, saying I should have called ahead. Others thought the treatment I'd received was inexcusable. Thanksgiving dinner was apparently a disaster, with half the family not showing up. Update 4. Last night, my phone rang at 2 a.m. It was my brother, and he was crying. He wanted to know what I'd done. He told me that Dad's business was on the verge of bankruptcy. 3 major contracts lost, plus word was getting around that they were unreliable. They might have to sell the house. My aunt's catering business was done. 20 years of building a reputation, gone in 2 months. She was talking about moving states. My sister had switched jobs twice in the past month. Couldn't seem to get any traction anywhere. Clients weren't returning calls. Deals were falling through, and she was starting to panic. The family was in chaos. People weren't speaking to each other. My cousins were taking sides. Grandma was sick with stress over all the fighting. My brother kept asking what I'd done, over and over. He said they all knew it had to be me somehow, but they couldn't figure out how. I told him I hadn't done anything illegal. I'd just shared some information with interested parties, made some suggestions, connected some dots. He begged me to stop. He said they were sorry about New Year's, that they'd made a mistake, that family was more important than whatever had happened. I reminded him how they'd treated me, how I'd flown 13 hours to surprise people I loved, and they'd made me feel like an unwanted stranger in my own family home. How my aunt had called me a ghost, how my sister had banned me from photos, how my own father had told me not to start anything. My brother said he understood I was hurt, but that this was destroying everyone's lives. I told him that 4 years ago, they'd made it clear I wasn't really family. I was just honoring that decision. He was quiet for a long time. Then he asked what it would take for me to stop. I told him it was too late to stop. The wheels were already in motion, and I wasn't controlling anything anymore. I'd just given people information they deserved to have, and now they were making their own decisions. But I said there was one thing I wanted. I wanted an apology, not just from him, but from all of them. A real one, in writing, acknowledging how they'd treated me, acknowledging that they'd been wrong, and acknowledging that their actions had consequences. And I wanted them to understand that family isn't just about blood. It's about how you treat people. It's about making space for people in your life, not just when it's convenient. My brother said he'd talk to everyone. He'd try to get them to apologize. I told him not to bother. Because the truth is, I don't want their apologies now. They're only sorry because they're facing consequences. They weren't sorry when they had the chance to make things right. For years ago, they chose to cut me out of their lives. They decided I wasn't worth their time or consideration. New Year's Eve just confirmed what I already knew. So I made a choice too. I decided to show them what it really meant to be cut out. What it felt like when someone who loved you decided you weren't worth the effort anymore. The difference is, I had the power to do something about it. Final update. This morning, I got a group text from my family. All of them, even my aunt. They were apologizing for New Year's Eve. They said they'd been wrong, that they missed me, that they wanted me to come home for Easter. I stared at that text for a long time. Then I deleted it without responding. Because here's what they don't understand. Some things can't be fixed with apologies. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. They had 4 years to reach out, to make things right, to show they cared. They had countless opportunities to be better. Instead, they waited until I had power over their lives to decide I was worth their attention. That tells me everything I need to know about who they really are. I'm not their family anymore. I haven't been for a long time. New Year's Eve just made it official. They wanted me to be a ghost? Fine. Ghosts don't forgive. They just haunt the people who wronged them. And sometimes, that haunting lasts forever.